Hello internet friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Lindsay or Lijo, and today I'm going to be speaking to you on how can you be a better friend, or a friend that guides your friends better, or just help have some great conversation and deep conversation as a result of using Socratic questioning. So we're gonna get right into it. If you'd like to book a video session with me, you can do that with my link below to Snug. So here we go. All right, so question, are you an ENFP who wants to help your ENTJ friend, or are you an ENTP who is tired of your friends not listening to you? Are you an INTJ who is just trying to convince this INFP of what you know will be really useful to them, but they just won't do it? And well, yeah, these situations happen all the time. There's many different circumstances in which we want to be useful to another person, but sometimes just giving our opinion or our own perspective isn't really the best thing for the situation. It's my personal philosophy that many times the most helpful or useful information exists already within the person. They already know what is best or what they need to do, but it's the process of taking that information from the unconscious and making it conscious. And hey, if you're ever in a situation where you really don't know the right thing to say, maybe someone's venting to you, sharing some information with you. If you don't know what to say, a great option is to ask a great question. And of course, disclaimer, this isn't for situations in which a person is a threat or a danger to themselves or to anyone else. If they need to get help for one of those reasons, please encourage them to get the help that they need. But this is more for your friend. It's just they're ranting on something. They want your perspective. But how do you give perspective without giving your opinion? There is often no stronger of a lesson that a person can get than the one that they end up realizing and teaching to themselves. And that's our introduction to Socratic questioning. Socratic questioning helps a person to think independently and come to their own conclusions by using known but often disconnected information. And I would call Socratic questioning truly a method of education. Except as a person doing the questioning, you're not the teacher, but rather you are a facilitator of that person's independent process. So that being said, these are 6 categories of Socratic questions that can be asked to a person to help in their own guided discovery, or just to bring some more depth to a possibly boring conversation. Oftentimes we don't see things clearly because we have not forced clarity on our own situation. So the first category is clarifying questions. Why do you say that? What makes that relevant to you? When you say all of the time, how often is that actually? Number 2 is questions that probe assumptions. Could you explain to me why or how you ended up at that assumption? Could you disprove that assumption in any way? Oftentimes people may not realize why they came to a certain assumption in the way that they did. And when they take a moment to step back and reflect on how that assumption was made, they become more critical of the process and the components involved. So the third category is questions that probe evidence. And this is kind of like the next layer to the clarity as I see it. So when they're explaining something to you, you can ask something like, well, what does it look like when that happens? What would be an example of that? What do you think is causing this to happen? What evidence might not support that conclusion? For those of you versed in type, we're really nailing down the sensory language on this one, which is really good, especially for your intuitive friends who may be just bypassing the sensory altogether. Number 4 is questioning perspective. And as I say, perspective is a multifaceted stone. So what's another way that you may be able to look at this? What might be an alternative? What's another way you could see this possibly playing out? What are the strengths and weaknesses of whatever the subject is? Number 5 is questions that probe the implications. So this is kind of getting to the end of where all the dots are connected. What might be the result if you end up following through with blank? What could be some consequences of assuming blank? What are the best and worst cases of this scenario, and why are you defining them to be the best and or the worst? And last, number 6 is questions about the question. And this is really where I like to take the idea of, kind of what the person is learning through this conversation and say, okay, this as a concept, how may this apply in other areas? So how does this concept or this pattern apply outside of this situation? Where might this same pattern present a challenge in other areas of your life? Again, you're questioning kind of the question as a whole. That's it for this video. I hope you get some kind of interesting questions that you could develop when you're talking with people, when you're talking to a friend who maybe needs some perspective, and really encourage them by this process that they have the answers oftentimes within themselves. And what an empowering and confidence boosting experience to be able to come to your own realizations and have ownership over your own life and thought process. So that's it for this video. I will see you guys in my next one. Goodbye, friends.